My name is Emma Collins, and I never imagined that returning home after college would lead to the biggest betrayal of my life. What began as a comforting reunion with family slowly unraveled into a web of secrets, lies, and unexpected truths hidden within the walls of my childhood home. At the heart of it all was my mother's legacy, a house, a bakery, and a carefully built future. But someone else had plans for it, and they didn't include me. Slow your breath. You're safe here. Grab a warm drink and type 1 to follow along with this story. To truly understand how everything spiraled, you need to know about my mother, Olivia Collins, the woman who built not only a home but an entire life around love, stability, and intention. She was the kind of person who made everything feel possible. A talented chef and the owner of a small but beloved bakery in our town, she had a way of making even the hardest days seem manageable with just a smile and something sweet from the oven. Growing up, it was just the two of us after my father left. And while that created its own kind of ache, my mother never let me feel like anything was missing. She filled the gaps with traditions, laughter, and unwavering support. She was more than just a parent. She was my best friend, my teacher, and my anchor. Every birthday cake she made, every late-night talk we had while sitting at the kitchen counter, every lesson she taught me about kindness and strength, it all became the fabric of who I am. Her bakery wasn't just a business, it was a part of her soul. She started it from scratch, putting in long hours, pouring every ounce of energy into it until it became a local gem. I spent countless afternoons there as a child, doing homework in the back room, helping with frosting cookies, and watching her charm every customer who walked through the door. That bakery was where I learned the value of hard work, the joy of creativity, and the quiet strength that comes from building something with your own two hands. But my mother wasn't just thinking about her own future. She was always planning for mine. Long before her cancer diagnosis, she'd put things in place to ensure I would be taken care of. She had a will, detailed instructions for the bakery, and even notes for me about how to run things when the time came. As painful as it was, she never hid the truth about her illness. Instead, she spent her final months showing me everything I would need to know to stand on my own. From managing inventory and payroll to talking to suppliers and balancing books, she walked me through it all. "You'll always have a home here," she told me one afternoon, her voice quiet but sure. "This house, this bakery, it's yours, Emma. I want you to know that no matter what happens, you'll never be alone." Bye, eats. When she passed away just weeks before I was supposed to leave for college, my world collapsed. Grief came in waves, sharp and unpredictable, and for a while I wasn't sure how I'd make it through. But even in the darkest moments, her love was like a lighthouse, guiding me forward, reminding me that I had something solid to hold on to. So I went to college with her words etched into my heart. I worked hard, driven by her memory, and kept the bakery closed but untouched, waiting for the day I'd be ready to step back in and continue what she started. I believed that when I came home, everything she left me would still be there, waiting like a warm light at the end of a long road. I was wrong. But the future my mother had so carefully planned began to shift the moment my father re-entered my life. After her passing, I was too numb to resist when Jack Collins, my estranged father, offered to step in. He arrived at the house with his new wife, Madison, and their daughter, Abigail. I hadn't grown up with them. Jack had left my mother and me when I was just a child, moving on with little explanation and starting a new family as if our chapter had never existed. There had never been fights or legal battles, just a quiet, devastating goodbye. Still, grief has a way of making you crave any kind of support, even from those who once abandoned you. They moved in under the guise of helping me cope, and for a while their presence was oddly comforting. Madison took over the kitchen duties, kept the house running, and ensured meals were on the table. Abigail, only a child at the time, distracted me with innocent chatter. My father helped with the legal documents surrounding Mom's passing, and in my raw state, I didn't question his intentions. When college approached, I was faced with the difficult decision of leaving the house empty. That's when Dad suggested they stay while I was gone, just to maintain things. They'd pay the bills, take care of the property, and keep the home alive until I returned. It felt like the practical solution. I trusted them. I believed, perhaps naively, that family, no matter how fractured, would respect what had been left behind. So I left. I threw myself into college life, hoping distance would dull the ache of loss and that home would still be home when I returned. But little by little, without me there to see it, the house began to change. During my first visit home, the changes were small. new curtains, different paint, a rug that wasn't there before. Madison greeted me with warmth and familiarity, almost too much of it. She served my favorite meal like she had always known my preferences. Abigail clung to me like a sister. For a while it felt nice, healing even. Holidays were shared, laughter returned to the walls, and I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, we were building a new kind of family. Madison invited me into her world, book clubs, movie nights, conversations over tea. Even my father softened, showing genuine interest in my life again. Slowly, they integrated into the space, into the rhythm of what my mother had created, and I, in my hope for connection, let them. But I didn't realize that their roots were digging deeper, that while I was away building my future, they were quietly planting seeds of ownership in a home that wasn't theirs to claim. I thought we were sharing something sacred. I didn't know they were making it theirs. And by the time I returned for good, the foundation of everything I thought I still owned was already beginning to crack. By the time I graduated and returned home for good, I expected to reclaim the space my mother had left for me. After 4 years of late-night studying and chasing dreams, all I wanted was the comfort of familiarity, the scent of home-baked bread, the hum of the old heater, and the safety of my mother's presence woven into the walls. But the moment my key refused to turn in the front door, I knew something was wrong. At first, I told myself it was a mistake. Maybe the locks had been changed for security and no one remembered to send me the new key. But when Madison opened the door, her expression wasn't one of welcome. It was discomfort, surprise, even irritation. "Emma," she said, her voice tight, "what are you doing here?" Confused, I replied simply, "I live here." But even as I stepped inside, the house no longer felt like mine. The furniture was rearranged, the photos on the wall replaced, and my mother's touches pushed quietly into corners. Before I could press her for answers, Dad pulled me aside into the small office, once my mother's sacred space. The room still held her certificates and cookbooks, but now it felt like a courtroom. What he told me next shattered everything. "I told Madison the house was mine," he said, unable to meet my eyes. "That I had only let your mother live in it after the divorce, and that when she passed, it came back to me." My breath caught. "What are you talking about? It's in the will. She left it to me." He nodded, shame flooding his features. "I know, but I didn't think it would matter. You were at college, and we needed a place to stay. I meant to fix it, to tell the truth. I just didn't. 4 years." He had lied to Madison for 4 years, allowing her to believe she owned the house, that she had the right to remodel it, live in it, claim it. Worse, he let her treat me like a guest, like I was intruding on something that was mine all along. The betrayal burned, not just from Madison, but from my own father, the man who had once held my hand at my mother's funeral. The man who watched as her memory was quietly erased, one rug and curtain at a time. I wanted to scream, to demand he fix it. But all he could offer were hollow apologies and vague promises. "Just give me time," he said. "Let me figure this out." But I had already given them years. Years of silence, trust, and space. And now, standing in the house my mother had left me, with someone else's furniture in the living room and someone else's rules being enforced, I realized the damage had already been done. What I didn't know then was that this was only the beginning. After the confrontation with my father, I chose, for reasons I can't fully explain, to stay silent. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was denial. Maybe I still believed he'd do the right thing, confess to Madison, and help restore what was mine. But as the days passed, it became painfully clear that silence only gave them permission to continue. The energy in the house shifted immediately. Madison, once overly polite, became subtly hostile. At first, it was the kind of behavior you could almost excuse. Passive-aggressive remarks hidden beneath sugar-coated smiles. "Emma, I reorganized the pantry. You probably didn't notice since you've been gone so long," she'd say with a too-sweet tone, like a knife dipped in honey. Then came the accidents. My favorite blouse came out of the laundry stained and ruined. "Oh no," Madison gasped, hand to her mouth. "I must have mixed it with Abigail's reds. These things happen in a busy house." Abigail, who once dragged me to her room to show me her artwork, now barely looked at me. She called me that girl when talking to her friends and slammed her door whenever I walked past. The little sister who used to braid my hair now treated me like I was nothing more than a stranger invading her space. Even my father, my last fragile thread of connection, pulled away. He left early, came home late, and avoided conversations. His presence became more ghost than guardian. But it wasn't until that Saturday morning that everything truly snapped. I woke to silence, eerily complete. No footsteps, no kitchen noise, no voices. The house felt abandoned. At first, I thought they had gone out for breakfast, but when I noticed their shoes and bags were gone too, I called. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Finally, Madison picked up, her voice sharp over the sound of waves and background music. "Oh," she said, feigning surprise. "Didn't we tell you? We're in the Maldives." My heart dropped. She continued, her voice laced with cruelty. "We didn't invite you because, well, you're not really family. When we get back, we want you gone. This has gone on long enough, Emma. You're just a freeloader, clinging to a house that isn't yours anymore." That was the moment something inside me changed. The sadness evaporated, replaced by something steadier, anger, and then clarity. This house was mine, my mother's house. My inheritance, my sanctuary, and I wasn't going to be pushed out any longer. While they were away sipping cocktails on a beach, I packed up their things, every last reminder of their quiet invasion, and moved it to the garage. Then I changed the locks. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. This was no longer about being accepted or liked. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. When they returned from their luxury vacation and found their belongings boxed in the garage and the locks changed, the fury on Madison's face was almost theatrical. She shouted, threatened to call the police, accused me of breaking and entering, as if I were the intruder. But I didn't flinch. I looked her in the eye and said, "This is my house. My mother left it to me. You've lived here because I allowed it, not because you had any right." She turned to my father, expecting him to defend her, and for once, he didn't. With downcast eyes and a trembling voice, he admitted the truth. "She's right, Madison. The house was never ours." The silence that followed was louder than all the shouting that had come before. Madison tried to soften, to remind me of the holidays, the family meals, the memories we'd shared. But it was too late. Those memories had always been mine to create, not hers to steal, and so they left, with their boxes, their fury, and their broken image of the perfect little life they thought they'd built. I stood at the window, watching their car disappear, not with bitterness, but with relief. The days that followed were quiet, unfamiliar at first, like living in a house emptied of noise but filled with peace. No more passive-aggressive remarks, no more cold silences, just me, the walls my mother once painted, and the future I was finally free to build. I started small. I repainted the living room in the warm tones my mom had always loved. I put her favorite vase back in the center of the dining table. I replanted the rose bushes outside exactly how she had them. Every change was an act of healing, of remembrance, of restoration. Then came the bakery. Closed for years after my mother passed, it had sat like a silent monument to her legacy. Now it was time to bring it back to life. I poured my evenings and weekends into repairs, paperwork, and late-night recipe testing. And when the doors reopened, the smell of warm bread and cinnamon rolls felt like coming home all over again. My job at Marshall and Brooks gave me purpose, but the bakery gave me soul. It was more than a business. It was a connection to my mother, a piece of her that lived on in every loaf and pastry. And through it all, I grew stronger. I set boundaries. I learned to say no. I stopped answering my father's voicemails, words of apology that arrived too late. Madison never called. Abigail stayed silent. It hurt, in quiet moments, but it no longer controlled me. Because for the first time in years, I stood on my own, in my home, in my life, in the legacy my mother trusted me to protect. And as the roses bloomed again outside the window, I knew I was finally home.